We're talking about how to start an LLC in Louisiana, and what you can see behind me here is a document that we're going to be working through that has a bunch of checklists on it. So you're going to see one down here on how to get your LLC set up. But before we get to that, I want to talk about how to avoid the LLC dumpster fire. Now, the reason we call it this is when you get an LLC set up, but you don't fully understand what it does for you and how you have to properly maintain that LLC, and that can result in tens of thousands of dollars in legal damages because you didn't understand the things that we're going to be talking about in this video. So those are terms such as piercing the corporate veil, registered agent, commingling funds, and pass-through taxation. We're going to be explaining those along with additional terms such as like EIN. So if these things don't make sense, they will in a little bit. But we're also going to be talking about how the LLC renewal process works, and then also talking about business licenses and permits after you get your LLC started. To better understand these things, what we're going to do is we're going to zoom out a little bit, and we're going to be talking specifically on what an LLC actually does for your business. Why don't we drop this down right here, and we're going to get to that right now. So we're going to be talking about that topic, and then also what is pass-through taxation and how does that affect you as a new business owner of an LLC. Now, to better explain this, why don't we talk about owning a coffee shop without an LLC? What does that look like? Well, here you have the business owner in the center. On the left-hand side, you have their personal assets. That's their personal home, car, and bank account. And then the right-hand side, you have the coffee shop, right? You have the business bank account, the point of sale, the physical location, the espresso machine, the lights, everything that's attached to that business. Well, what you can see here is everything is attached back to the business owner, which creates a lot of potential liability. Now, in a different circumstance, this is owning an LLC that owns the coffee shop. You can see this looks very different. Here we have the business owner on the left-hand side with their personal assets, and on the right-hand side, we're calling it the Acme Coffee LLC. So all of those things we mentioned before are owned by the actual LLC. What's important here is this red division in the middle. This is something called the corporate veil. Now, earlier in the beginning of the video, we talked about piercing the corporate veil, and we also talked about commingling funds. So we're going to explain those two things right now. And let's say that in a hypothetical scenario that you were to be sued as the owner of this Acme Coffee LLC. What the person suing you is going to try to do, that attorney, is they're going to try to find cracks in your LLC. And one of those potential cracks could be a situation where you're commingling funds. What that is that you didn't set up a business bank account right away, and that you were using your personal bank account for your personal finances, but then also your business finances and transactions as well. If they're able to find this out, and then they're able to present this information to the judge, and the judge agrees with them, they may grant them access to pierce the corporate veil. What that is this red division in the middle here, the corporate veil, dissolves, and then they can come after not only your business assets, but your personal assets as well. Because that's why you're setting up the LLC, is you want that division so they can't come after your personal assets. That's why understanding things such as commingling funds is so important. So just quick tip, as soon as you get your LLC set up, get that business bank account set up right away as well. Now, what you can see here is an explanation of pass-through taxation. A lot of people get a little bit confused on how this works, so I just wanted to describe this. What it is let's say that Acme Coffee LLC grossed $140,000, they had $90,000 of expenses, and creates $50,000 of net income. The IRS is not taxing Acme Coffee LLC. That $50,000 is flowing through, or sometimes pass through, right? Sometimes it's called flow-through taxation, but it's passing through to the business owner, and the IRS is taxing the business owner. Just wanted to make you aware of that because sometimes people get a little bit, confused at tax time. That's what's going to happen. But something to chew on for the future. If you are making net income of $50,000, what you can do is you can originally set up as an LLC, and what you can see here is that in the future you can apply an S-Corp tax designation to reduce your tax burden. We're going to be talking about that in the future videos in this series because this is a playlist, and I highly encourage you to watch all the videos in the series because there are going to be things such as this that can set you up in the future where you're not going to lose out in tax savings. Knowing all these things ahead, even if it's a year or two out, is going to help prevent the issues that sink a lot of business owners. So I'm so glad you're watching this content because, again, it's going to be helpful for you for years to come. Now, here, why don't we get to the checklist of starting your LLC? Number one is get this checklist for yourself. There's going to be a QR code on the screen that you can scan, but there's also a link in the description below. It's a free checklist, but it's more than just a checklist. There's also bonuses and a glossary of terms. The glossary of terms is going to be very helpful. Stuff like fictitious name. We're going to be talking about why that's important to understand in a few minutes in this video. But also in the bonuses section is an AI chatbot. This is really neat because you can do stuff like start an LLC in Louisiana. And when you do this, what it's going to do is it's going to create a step-by-step list for you of the steps that you need to take in Louisiana when you're getting your LLC set up. But you can also do stuff like, how do I register an EIN? Well, when you click on that, it's going to explain what an EIN is and how to register. But we're going to explain that in this video as well. There's a cool free charitable opportunity that you can donate $20 to charity when you're getting your LLC set up. This yearly accounting calendar, we're going to be talking about in a future video in this series as well, explaining what all these dates are. And I'm sure right now you might be like feeling overwhelmed, like, geez, there's so much more around owning an LLC than I realized. There is, but what you do is you just start to educate yourself and slowly build up your education. And then once you own it and manage it for a year, all of this will really click into place. And it really is pretty seamless to own and operate an LLC. But just wanted to make you aware of these bonuses there for you. So what we want to talk about right now is which route you should go. We're going to be deep diving on this in the next video in this series, but there's really three options. You can go through the state website, and when you're on the state website, you can go through the physical mailer. So you download a PDF, fill it out, and mail it in, or you can go through their online filing system. There's also online LLC services or legal tools. There's a bunch of them out there. They've gotten really good in terms of the fact that most of them have a free package, which is just free plus state fee. But there are a lot of upsell opportunities that you should be aware of because sometimes you can overspend that way. And then you can also go through a business attorney. Business attorney is going to be by far the most expensive, but they can tailor advice to your specific situation. And sometimes that's helpful if you have a more complex situation or more potential liability in the future based on your business category. For the sake of this video, we're going to go through the state website and the actual mailing it in, right? Like, what does that PDF look like? We're going to explain aspects of that PDF, but most people will probably go with the online filing system. What you need to do, though, is decide on a business name for your LLC. What I'll say is a lot of times people put too much pressure on themselves with this. They think that they need the perfect name. Well, earlier we were talking about a fictitious name. What you can do is, like, the name like Acme Coffee LLC is a terrible name for a coffee shop, but let's say you wanted to call it Espresso Yourself Cafe. Well, you can have that as a DBA, which is a doing business as, or a fictitious name. It depends on your state and what they require, but you can have your brand name just be that fictitious name that lives underneath the LLC. What's important with your LLC is the name that you have is unique within your state and your business category. So what you're going to do is once you have a name, and if you don't have one yet, what I'd recommend is you can use AI tools such as like ChatGPT to help you brainstorm. But there's a state directory here. Click this link, go down to Louisiana and click this. And then what you're going to do is you're going to put your entity name in here. Now, if you were to put like Tigers and then I'm not a robot and search, what you're going to find is there's going to be a lot of businesses with the word Tigers in there. You can see there's 10 more results, probably even more than that. But what I would recommend is you want to see something that looks like this. So if I just kind of jam out on the keyboard and then do a search, what you're going to see is a message that says active records are shown in bold and there are 0 total results. That is what you're looking for your business name. Now, of course, you can do something where there could be another name similar to it, but it's a different business category, because it could be like, well, this was called something paint shop versus, computer repair. Those are different categories. But it's always a good idea to try to get something with 0 results so that you have a unique name that you can own in the state of Louisiana. Now, once you have that set up, what you can do next is you get your LLC formed. I'm going to be talking about these first 3 steps: registering your LLC name, writing your articles of organization, and assigning a registered agent. The difference between registering your LLC name and the articles of organization. Well, articles of organization is the actual document you fill out and submit to the state with your filing fee that is going to set up your LLC. When you register your LLC name, simply what you're doing is you're just getting that name and earmarking it, right? You don't actually have the LLC set up, but you own that name. It's kind of like if you're getting a website set up, you can buy the domain and then later build the website. It's very similar. But what we're going to be talking about right now is the articles of organization. And we have another link there that you can click. It's a state directory link. And these bullet points cover what goes into the articles of organization. But we're going to specifically talk about Louisiana. What you can see here, why don't we zoom in a little bit? First things here is just asking if you want a routine setup or if you want it expedited for $30 or priority expedited for $50. That's up to you. Most people will do routine. You're going to put your business name and then name a person filing the document and your address. Next is the articles of organization. the name of the limited liability company that you've found that has a unique name. This company is formed for the purpose of, and you're going to select one of these, and then the duration of the limited liability company, and it may be perpetual. Most of them will be perpetual. Sometimes people are just setting it up because they're like, they just need an LLC for like 1 year for a project or a task, and then the signatures, and then dating it, and then the notary signature. Now, if you're doing it through their online system, the notary signature isn't going to be required. That's all going to be put in through online. I would never recommend anybody to actually go through this PDF because I find that to be more tedious. But here, what you have is the company initial report. So you have the name, but this is really important. Right here, it's talking about the company's registered office. So usually this is called a registered agent, and there's a few important things around a registered agent and what they do. Number one is that they must have a physical mailing address within the state of Louisiana. Number two is it cannot be a P.O. box. And then what that registered office or registered agent does is they handle important communication and documentation for your LLC. So let's say that you were to be sued. What's going to happen is they're going to get what's called a service of process notice. That service of process notice would go to your registered office, and they would handle that and make sure that you're getting that documentation, that you're showing up to court with everything that you need when it comes to that situation. So it's a very important position. And a lot of times what they do is they just ask you, who is it? And then you're like, I don't know. Well, when you go through online legal tools, they partner with registered agent services, and one in particular actually provides you that service for free for the first year. So this is kind of where I see going through the state website is kind of limiting because they just don't provide you these services and they don't give good clarification of that. The names and municipal addresses, all right, so who are the managers, members of your LLC, and then you sign here, and then again, more signatures. So then once you have this, this is where you would actually mail in this articles of organization into the Secretary of State. Now, what I want to talk about next, though, is once you file your articles of organization and you submit your check, is creating and signing an LLC operating agreement. This is not required in the state of Louisiana, but it's a great idea to have one of these in place early on. It's a situation where an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Now, let's say that your coffee shop explodes and you have like 27 locations, right? But if you pulled in a business partner at some point, or maybe you started with one, let's say that that business partner wants out of the business. Well, how do you handle that? If it's handled in the operating agreement and clearly spelled out up front, it can say, these are the members, these are the roles and responsibilities. If somebody wants to exit, this is how it's handled. Those types of questions are already answered. But when you try to answer these questions later on, that's where it can get very complicated and very expensive, because perhaps you end up both having to hire attorneys and figuring this out. What is the value of this business at this stage? Those kinds of things. So again, having an operating agreement in place early on is very helpful. The state website is not going to help you with this. Online legal tools, they have like a boilerplate template that you can use. And then if you go through a business attorney, they can really dial it into your specific needs. My advice is the more complex your situation, the more likely you are to go through a business attorney to get something like this figured out. But if you're like a solopreneur and you just simply want an operating agreement in place today, and it's something that you can edit and change in the future, you can go through like a template style in that situation. Now, once you decide if you get that LLC operating agreement in place, there's things that you want to consider after LLC formation. Here we have setting up an EIN. There's a little blue link here, IRS link. What an EIN is: an employment identification number. It's like a social security number for your business. And with that, it allows the IRS to identify your business. And if you're going to have staff that you're paying payroll, well, you're going to need an EIN to be able to pay them. Also, when you're applying for things such as like business insurance or an office space or a loan, it looks a lot better when you have your EIN on that documentation as opposed to your social security number. It makes you look more legitimate in the eyes of those vendors. So it's definitely something worth getting set up. This link here, you can walk through it. It's free to do. If you go through online legal tools, they'll do it for you for an additional fee. It's usually like baked into a package. But just know that there's different options for getting that set up. Now, next, what I want to talk about is obtaining business licenses and permits for your LLC. There's an SBA resource here that's pretty helpful, and you can actually scroll down and put in your state and be able to see more resources that help you understand what they are. But the easiest way to describe this, in my opinion, is just like, let's say you were starting a brewery. Well, you're going to be making beer, distributing beer, and serving beer on location. Those three things can all require separate licenses and permits. And those licenses and permits can happen on the federal level, the state level, and the local level. Well, the local level could be your town or city, right? So what I would recommend is you can call the town clerk and say, hey, I'm starting this type of business. What kind of licenses and permits do I need to be aware of, if any? Not every business needs them, but like if you're going to be a chiropractor, a dentist, or starting a construction company, those are examples where you may need licenses and permits to operate. So it's a big no-no. A lot of times people get their LLC set up, they think they're ready to go. Make sure you're checking on the state level, the local level, and the federal level. Now, a lot of those online legal tools, they actually have research packages which will do this research for you. And based on your specific business category, they will say, hey, you need to fill out these different forms. These are the licenses and permits that you'll need. So that's an additional thing which will cost extra. But if you're worried about it, they can do that research for you. Now, what I want to talk about is in the next video in this series here, we're going to be talking about the different options for LLC formation, but we're really going to be deep diving into those options. We're going to get into the fees associated with setting up your LLC. So there's a cost calculator embedded below. I'm not going to show it to you right now, but it'll show you down to the dollar what your LLC is going to cost year 5 of owning the LLC, because there's renewal fees involved. There's maintenance fees involved with owning the LLC. So we're going to get into that right there. There's a star rating that we're going to show here that just kind of shows you the differences between these 3 services and where these star ratings came from and how they apply to your situation. Also, why state websites can become a pain, and it has to do with domestic and foreign LLCs. So again, I know this is a lot, but we're going to be breaking this down so it becomes familiar to you so that you know these things as your business starts to grow in the future. And then we're also just going to explore questions worth asking when it comes to setting up your LLC, because a lot of times it may make more sense to go with a business attorney versus going through the state website or online services. So again, I highly recommend you get this free checklist for yourself. There'll be a link in the description below. And I'm going to catch you in this next video. We're going to really deep dive. And it's really important because I've seen people overspend by $1,500 by going the wrong direction when they're getting their LLC set up. So we'll catch you in the next video.